Hello and welcome to the Sound of Science, the place where we deconstruct unscientific reasoning. Please consider to like and subscribe if you support science. Thanks for watching. Hello, you wonderful people. Earlier, I made some videos about self-proclaimed Bishop Tom Brown from Texas, because really, his level of ridiculousness keeps amazing me. And today I've got another golden example of Tom Brown's library of buffoonery. So stay tuned for another episode of Exposing the Bozo. Exposing the Bozo. So I was kinda minding my own business, binge-watching my favorite goofy charlatan Christian apologists on YouTube, and then I ran into another video of our favorite clown bishop Tom Brown from Texas. Let's listen to this.
I want to answer the question, where does the tithe go?
So I thought, Tom, don't get me started about delusional preachers and tithes. I mean, Bill O'Reilly already set the bar for that on an exotically low level. No one will ever be able to beat that historic hallmark of stupidity.
I'll tell you why it's not a scam, in my opinion. All right? Tithe goes in, tithe goes out. Never a miscommunication. You can't explain that. You can explain why the tide goes in.
Tide goes in, tide goes out.
See, the water, the tide comes in and it goes out.
Tide goes in, tide goes out. Never misses. You can't explain that. Bill O'Reilly told it while millions of Americans watched how he made a fool out of himself. One of the leading anchorman of American TV, who apparently didn't pay attention at school when he was 12 years old, and thought it was a mystery how the tides of the oceans move, and that nobody can explain that, while every high school kid can explain to you that the tides of the oceans are caused by the gravitational pull of the moon. So, when I heard our favorite clown bishop talk about tides, I first thought, Tom, nobody asked you where the tide goes. We all know where the tide goes. Tide goes in, tide goes out. Don't bother with those tides anymore. So I continued listening.
Well, according to Paul in 1 Corinthians 9, the tithe goes to those who are preaching the gospel.
And then it got even more confusing. What does God need with a starship? And what does God need with the tides? And then it became even more complicated. Tom, the tide doesn't go to the people who preach the gospel. The tide goes into the direction that the moon is pulling it. Is something else going on here?
Well, according to Paul in 1 Corinthians 9, the tithe goes to those who are preaching the gospel.
Tom, you're not talking about thighs, aren't you? Because Christian preachers and thighs, that's another very unfortunate combination. So don't get me started with that. And then it struck me that, of course, these Christian apologists have their own internal secret clown language with their own secret little words, you know. I was born an atheist. I never went to church. I never had to read silly scripture. I never had to pray. I never had to sit on the lap of creepy preachers. I was very lucky. So I don't have any idea of their internal clown rankings, you know, bishops, priests, cardinals, elders, deacons, pastors. To me, they are all preachers of hogwash, so I don't discriminate between them. To me, they are all clowns. And of course, they have their own secret little words for their buildings and fan clubs and meetings and stuff, you know, parish, ministry, congregation, convocation. I really don't know, and I really don't care what all these words mean. But when it comes to that Christian vocabulary, I don't have a plan. Do I really look like a guy with a plan? When it comes to those Christian silly words, I'm like a dog chasing cars. I wouldn't know what to do with one if I caught it. To me, those silly Christian words, to me, let me get my pills first. To me, they're just meaningless phrases used to justify the upholding of an ancient belief system that in many instances is being abused in order to take people's money and keep them under control. You see, my problem is not with the Christian belief or with the Christian believers. My problem is with the layer of charlatans who use your belief to grab your money and tell you what to do and what not to do. Beware of those crooks. And that, of course, brings us back to our favorite clown bishop, Tom Brown, who was talking about tithes.
Well, according to Paul in 1 Corinthians 9, the tithe goes to those who are preaching the gospel. Listen to what Paul says in 1 Corinthians chapter 9, verse 11. If we have sown spiritual seed among you, is it too much if we reap a material harvest from you? If others have this right of support from you, shouldn't we have it all the more? Notice he calls it a right of the minister to have this support.
Now, it turns out that Tom was not talking about the tides of the ocean and not the thighs of his favorite gullible churchgoers, but he was talking about the tithe. Well, I never heard of that, and for good reason, because it doesn't make any sense. So, what is a tithe? Well, imagine you are an average American Christian, and you work 10 hours a day, 5 days a week, in a factory perhaps, or at an office, or in a shopping mall, or in a hospital. And life is expensive. You gotta pay the rent, you gotta pay car insurance, groceries, your kids are growing up and they need school books. So you are working all day long to make ends meet. And then your government steps in and says, listen, we want a piece of the action. We'll call it tax. And you pay us or else you go to jail. Now make no mistake about this, I'm not against taxation. If governments do the right thing with your tax money, like building roads and bridges, building proper schools and hospitals, funding police and the military to protect the security of the people. All of that is mighty fine, and I gladly pay for that. But now you're a Christian, and you work 50 hours a week, and you've paid your taxes, and of course, then you want to settle down on the couch and get yourself a cold beer. But then your doorbell rings, and guess who's there? It's your local clown bishop. And he's telling you, well, don't forget to pay your tithe this month. Got a nice life here. Would be such a shame if you had to burn in hell for eternity. So you better pay your tithe, man. Because the Christian church institutions, they don't just believe in God. They also believe you gotta pay for him. They've got their own internal clown taxes. I kid you not. Paying for your tithe basically means paying 10% of your income to the church. Now, of course, not all churches use this ridiculous system. But you guessed it, Clown Bishop Tom Brown is very much in favor of it. But listen, if you're a Christian, it doesn't mean you need to be a fool. Clown Bishop Tom Brown is now going to tell you gotta pay those sweet dollars to him. Why? Don't know. You see, it really doesn't look like Tom needs your money. The man obviously leads a nice lifestyle. Look at the beautiful house. Look at the swimming pool. Look at the fact that he can spend his time making silly videos that almost nobody watches. This guy doesn't seem to need your money. Yet in his video, he's getting more and more desperate for your cash. Have a look at this.
It's unmistakable. Verse 14, in the same way. What way? In the same way that the priests received their living from the tithes of the people, in the same way the Lord has commanded. He didn't suggest, he's commanded that this is the way. So God intended all along that eventually the tithe would go to those who are preaching the gospel.
So Tom is saying here that churchgoers should pay him for talking his rubbish. He actually thinks he deserves compensation for this. Well, I was thinking all the time that I should get compensation for every second that I have to listen to his bullshit. So what we see here is a textbook example of plain old religious extortion. This is repulsing, so Tom is trying to talk his gullible churchgoers into paying him money for talking his crap. And he is using the Bible to force his churchgoers into the delusion that their God commands them to give their money to Tom.
In the same way, the Lord has commanded. He didn't suggest, he's commanded that this is the way. So all of you who've been saying, I don't believe in tithing, it's not in the New Testament. Well, right here in 1 Corinthians 9, it's clearly in the New Testament. And not only is it in the New Testament, Paul actually tells us where the tithe goes to. It goes to those who are preaching the gospel.
This is so crappy, Tom. How low can you go? Don't forget to give the gullibles your toll-free number, Tom, or your website address.
If you've been blessed by my TikTok and you want to support us, you see right now our website. You can go to it. You can read hundreds of articles, hundreds of Bible answers, and you can find out how you can give and support our ministry. God bless you.
to you Christians out there who watch my video, look, I don't believe your God exists, but if he does, and if he loves you, your God would never want you to feel compelled and forced to pay your money to some creepy guy with a swimming pool. That loving God would want you to spend your hard-earned dollars on stuff that is important to you and your family. So if you've got some money left that you don't need to spend right now, then invest it in the future of you and your family. Pay off your debt, get yourself some additional education, put some money in a savings account or buy some shares from a decent Fortune 500 company, and then still got money left? Use it to help other people according to your own judgment and your own insights. You know best who can use some extra help. Still got money left? Maybe buy a small lot of land and grow some apple trees. Still got money left? Then get yourself a nice swimming pool just like Tom did. You get the point. Thanks for watching.